Hello, everyone, and welcome. Tonight, we travel far away, beyond the noise of the world, to a quiet place where time seems to move more slowly and everything unfolds in its own gentle rhythm. A place where nothing rushes and nothing needs to. This is the village of Silver Lake. The night is slowly beginning to fade. Far beyond the still waters, behind the distant line of mountains, a soft and almost unnoticeable light begins to rise. It does not break through the darkness suddenly, but instead spreads quietly, like a slow breath across the sky. Deep shades of blue begin to soften into pale silver, blending gently as the morning approaches. The lake remains completely still. Its surface reflects the sky so clearly that it becomes difficult to tell where the water ends and where the world above begins. The last faint stars linger within its reflection, slowly fading one by one, as if they are being carried away by the coming light. A thin layer of mist drifts above the water. It moves slowly, without direction, curling and unfolding in soft patterns. At times it reveals the shoreline, and then, just as gently, hides it again. The world feels distant here, softened, as if everything is wrapped in quiet calm. At the edge of the lake, the village rests in silence. From afar, it looks almost untouched. Wooden houses stand close together, their rooftops still holding the last shadows of the night. The narrow paths between them remain empty, undisturbed, as though no one has walked them for hours. There are no voices, no footsteps, no movement, only stillness. A wooden bridge stretches across a narrow river that feeds into the lake. Its surface is worn smooth, shaped by years of quiet passage. Now it stands unused, waiting in silence, belonging only to the early morning. The air feels cool and fresh. It carries the faint scent of water, wood, and damp earth. A gentle breeze moves across the lake, barely strong enough to be noticed, yet enough to create the smallest ripples on the surface. They spread outward slowly, and then disappear again. Near the shoreline, a small wooden boat rests, tied loosely to an old post. It shifts slightly with the water, the rope tightening and loosening in a soft rhythm. A faint creaking sound follows, quiet and steady, blending into the stillness of the morning. The first light now touches the mountain peaks. A warm golden glow appears at their highest points, standing in soft contrast to the cool tones of the lake below. Slowly, the light begins to move downward, reaching the trees, the slopes, and finally the edges of the village. The mist begins to lift, not all at once, but gradually, revealing more of the shoreline, the stones, and the quiet details that were hidden before. The village becomes clearer with each passing moment. Wooden walls begin to show their textures. Roofs reveal their worn edges. Small fences appear along the paths, slightly uneven, shaped by time rather than design. Everything feels natural, unchanged, as if it has always been this way. Then the light reaches the windows. One by one, they begin to reflect the morning glow, shimmering softly as the sun rises higher. The reflections move gently, shifting with the angle of the light, all except one. Near the edge of the village, facing the lake, there is a single window that remains different. It does not shimmer, it does not shift. It simply holds the light, still and quiet. The difference is small, so small that it could easily be overlooked. And yet, it remains. The light continues to grow stronger. The village becomes clearer, more defined, slowly preparing to awaken. Still, no doors open. No voices break the silence. Everything remains calm, peaceful, unchanged. And yet, beneath that calm, there is a feeling, something quiet, something patient, as if this place, resting beside the still waters of Silver Lake, is holding on to something unseen, something that does not belong entirely to the morning or the night, but to the silence in between. And as the first light fully settles across the lake, the village begins slowly to awaken. The light continues to grow gently over Silver Lake. What began as a faint glow behind the mountains now spreads slowly across the water, reaching further into the quiet landscape. The shadows begin to soften, and the village becomes clearer with every passing moment. And yet, the stillness remains. Nothing moves quickly here. The morning unfolds at its own quiet pace, as if time itself has chosen to slow down. The lake reflects everything. The sky, now brighter, stretches across its surface in soft tones of gold and pale blue. The mountains appear within it, inverted and calm, their shapes slightly softened by the gentle movement of the water. The village too appears in the reflection. Wooden rooftops, narrow paths, and the silent bridge, all mirrored perfectly, as though the lake is holding a second version of the world beneath its surface. A light breeze moves across the water. It is soft, barely noticeable, yet enough to create small ripples that travel slowly outward. These ripples shift the reflections just slightly, bending shapes and lines into gentle distortions before they settle once again. Near the shore, the wooden boat moves a little more now. It drifts just enough for the rope to tighten, then relax again. The sound is quiet, steady, almost rhythmic. It feels like part of the morning itself. Along the edge of the lake, small stones glisten in the growing light. Drops of water cling to their surfaces, reflecting tiny points of brightness that flicker as the sun rises higher. The mist has thinned now, revealing more of the shoreline, more of the quiet details that were hidden before. The village stands unchanged. No doors have opened. No footsteps have crossed the paths. It remains peaceful, still waiting. And then something shifts, not in the village itself, but in the reflection. At first, it is almost impossible to notice. The water continues to move gently. The reflections ripple and settle, just as they have before. Everything appears as it should, except, for a moment, the reflection of the village does not perfectly match what stands above it. It is subtle, so subtle that it could be dismissed as a trick of the water. But something is different. One of the houses, near the edge of the village, the same place where the still window rests, in the reflection, the light inside that window appears slightly stronger, warmer, more present, as if it exists more clearly in the water than in the world above. The ripples pass, the image shifts again, and just as quickly as it appeared, the difference fades. The reflection returns to normal, calm, perfect, unchanged. The lake becomes still once more. The surface smooths out, holding the world again in quiet balance. Nothing seems out of place. Nothing seems unusual. And yet, the moment lingers, a quiet question without an answer. The light continues to spread across the village. More rooftops glow softly in the morning sun. The paths begin to take on a warmer tone. The bridge stands clearly now, its worn planks catching the light in long, soft lines. Still, no one appears. The village remains silent, but the feeling has changed, only slightly, barely noticeable, as if something has shifted just beneath the surface. Not enough to disturb the calm, but enough to be remembered. The lake lies still again. The reflections remain steady, and yet feels as though the water has seen something that the waking world has not yet noticed. And as the morning continues to unfold, Silver Lake remains quiet, patient, watching, The morning continues to unfold over Silver Lake, slow and undisturbed. The light has now fully reached the village, resting gently on rooftops, wooden fences, and narrow paths that wind between the quiet houses. The cool tones of the night have faded, replaced by a soft warmth that spreads evenly across the land. And still, everything remains calm. The lake reflects the growing light with quiet precision. Its surface, now clearer than before, holds the image of the village in perfect balance. The subtle disturbance that once appeared in the reflection has passed, leaving behind only stillness. Near the shoreline, the wooden boat drifts again, this time just slightly more than before. The rope tightens, pauses, then loosens again. The soft creaking sound follows, steady and unbroken, as if marking the slow passage of time. The water beneath it moves gently, though no wind can be clearly felt. Along the paths of the village, nothing has yet changed. Doors remain closed, windows remain still. The wooden bridge stands empty, its worn planks now fully illuminated by the morning sun. Light stretches across it in long, quiet lines, revealing every small detail shaped by years of use. The air feels different now, not colder, not warmer, but lighter, as if something has shifted, too subtle to be named. A faint sound emerges, soft, barely noticeable. It does not come from the lake, nor from the distant mountains. It comes from within the village. A small movement, a quiet presence. One of the doors, near the edge of the village, slowly opens. The sound is almost silent, a soft wooden creak, so gentle it blends into the morning itself. The door moves only slightly, just enough to break the perfect stillness that has held the village since the night. But no one steps out. The doorway remains empty. The shadow inside does not move. The door simply stays open, as if it has been waiting to do so. The rest of the village does not respond. No other doors open. No voices follow. The silence remains, unchanged. And yet, something is different. The path in front of the open door is untouched, still carrying the quiet dust of the morning. No footprints appear. No sign of movement can be seen, and still, the door is open. The light reaches it now, touching its wooden frame, revealing small marks and textures that were hidden before. It looks ordinary, no different from the others, except for the fact that it has moved. A bird lands briefly on a nearby fence. It watches, its head tilts slightly, as if noticing something unseen. It remains there for a moment, completely still, before suddenly lifting into the air again without a sound. The lake remains calm. The reflection continues to mirror the world above without change. The window that once held its light still appears quiet now, blending in with the rest of the village. Everything seems normal, and yet the open door remains, unexplained, unnoticed, as if it belongs to a moment that has not fully arrived yet. The breeze moves gently once more, passing through the trees, across the water, and into the village itself. It brushes against the open door, but does not move it. It stays exactly where it is. The morning continues. The light grows stronger. The village begins to feel closer to waking, and yet it has not fully begun. There is a sense now, quiet but present, that something has started. Not loudly, not suddenly, but slowly, just beneath the surface of this peaceful place. And as Silver Lake reflects the stillness of the world above, the first movement in the village has already passed, leaving behind only silence and an open door. The morning light now rests fully over the village of Silver Lake. What was once hidden in shadow is now clearly visible. Every rooftop, every narrow path, every wooden fence shaped by time. The calm remains, but something beneath it has begun to shift, slowly and quietly. The open door still stands. It has not moved since the moment it first revealed itself. It remains slightly open, untouched by the gentle breeze that moves through the village. The light now reaches inside, but whatever lies beyond the doorway remains hidden in shadow. The village feels closer to waking, and yet it has not fully begun. Near the lake, the water remains calm. Its surface reflects the sky and the village with quiet precision, disturbed only by the smallest movements. The wooden boat continues its slow rhythm, drifting slightly as the rope creaks softly in the silence. Then, a sound, so faint it could almost be imagined. A single step, somewhere along the narrow path between the houses. It is soft, almost weightless, as if whoever made it did not wish to be heard. The sound fades quickly. Silence returns. Nothing moves. No one appears. The path remains empty, and yet something has changed. The dust along the path shifts slightly, as if something has passed through it. But there are no footprints, no marks, no sign of direction, only a faint disturbance, already settling back into stillness. Another step, this time closer. Again, no figure can be seen. The open door remains ahead, still and quiet, as if waiting. The light stretches across the ground, revealing every small detail: stones, cracks, uneven edges. Yet nothing interrupts its path, and still, the sound of movement lingers. A third step, slower, closer. The air feels different now, not colder, not warmer, but heavier in a way that cannot be fully explained. The gentle breeze that once moved freely through the village seems to hesitate, as if it too has noticed something. Near the fence, a small bird lands once more. It does not sing. It does not move. It simply watches, its eyes fixed on the empty path. The lake reflects everything as before, calm, perfect, but even the reflection seems to wait. Then, the open door shifts slightly, not wide, not sudden, just enough to move. A quiet creak follows, soft and slow, echoing faintly through the still air. The sound of footsteps stops. The path becomes silent once more. Nothing appears. No one enters. No one leaves. And yet, the door now stands open just a little more than before. The shadow inside deepens, as if the light has chosen not to follow. The bird lifts into the air without a sound. The breeze returns, but gently, carefully, as though it is moving around something unseen. The village remains empty, peaceful, still, and yet no longer untouched. Something has moved through this place, something that leaves no trace, no form, no answer, only the memory of quiet footsteps and a door that continues to open on its own. The village remains quiet beneath the soft morning light. Nothing moves quickly, nothing breaks the calm, and yet the feeling that something has changed continues to grow, slowly and quietly, like a thought that refuses to fade. The open door still stands. It has shifted slightly more since the last moment, though no wind has passed strong enough to move it. The shadow inside remains deep, untouched by the sunlight that now fills the rest of the village. The path leading to it is empty. No footsteps remain. No sound returns. And yet, the sense of presence lingers. Near the lake, the water has grown even calmer. The ripples have faded almost completely, leaving behind a surface so still it reflects every detail with perfect clarity. The mountains, the sky, the village, all resting quietly within it, as though held in place. The wooden boat no longer moves. The rope hangs loose now, no longer tightening, no longer creaking. It simply rests, as if whatever motion guided it before has come to an end. The air feels heavier, not in a way that disturbs, but in a way that settles. The breeze has slowed. The leaves on the trees barely move. Even the sounds of distant birds seem to have faded, leaving behind a deeper silence than before. And then, a light appears, not from the sun, not from the sky, but from within the house. At first, it is faint, so faint it could be mistaken for reflection, a trick of the morning light passing through glass. But this light does not move. It does not shift with the angle of the sun. It remains steady, warm. The same window that once held a still reflection now begins to glow from within. Soft at first, then slightly stronger. Golden, but deeper than sunlight. The rest of the village reflects the morning. But this light belongs only to the house. The open door stands before it, unmoving. The light does not reach the doorway. It does not spill outward. It remains contained, as if it chooses to stay inside. The lake reflects it, but differently. Where the window glows above, the reflection below appears softer, delayed, as though the water hesitates before accepting what it sees. The stillness deepens. Time seems to stretch. The light inside the house grows just a little stronger. Not enough to brighten the village, but enough to be noticed, enough to feel intentional. No one approaches, no one reacts. The village remains silent, untouched, and yet this light continues to exist, alone, unexplained. The open door remains slightly wider now, but still nothing moves within the darkness beyond it. No shadow shifts, no figure appears, only the glow, steady and patient, as if it has been there long before the morning came, as if it has been waiting, not for the light, but for something else. The lake remains still. The reflection holds. The world above continues unchanged. And yet, within this quiet village beside Silver Lake, a light has appeared where no light should be, and it does not fade. The morning has now fully settled over Silver Lake. The light rests gently across the village, filling every corner with a soft and steady warmth. The shadows of the night have faded completely, leaving behind a calm and quiet stillness that feels almost untouched. And yet, something is no longer the same. The glowing window remains. It has not dimmed. It has not changed. The light inside the house continues to burn softly, steady and warm, as if it exists outside the rhythm of the morning. It does not flicker like fire, nor does it shift like sunlight. It simply remains. The open door stands just as before, perhaps slightly wider now, though it is difficult to be certain. The shadow inside the house remains deep, holding its silence as if it hides something that does not wish to be seen. The path leading to the door is still empty, but the village is no longer entirely still. A small movement appears near the far side of the square. A figure, slow, unhurried. A villager steps into the light. The movement is gentle, almost cautious, as if the morning itself has only just allowed it. The figure walks slowly along the narrow path, head slightly lowered, taking in the quiet world around them. There is no urgency, no fear, only a calm awareness. Another door opens, this time clearly. The soft sound carries lightly through the air, not breaking the silence, but joining it. A second villager appears, stepping out into the morning light, pausing for a moment as if adjusting to the day. They do not speak. They do not call out. They simply stand and look. The village begins to awaken, but not as expected. There are no busy movements, no sudden activity, Each action unfolds slowly, gently, as though guided by something unseen. A third figure appears near the bridge, walking calmly, pausing briefly, looking toward the lake. The water remains still, the reflection holds steady, and yet something has changed. The villagers begin to notice, not with alarm, not with confusion, but with quiet attention. Their gazes drift, one by one, toward the same place. The house, the one near the edge of the village, the one with the open door, the one with the light. They do not react strongly. No one rushes forward. No one speaks. They simply look, as if they have seen this before, or perhaps as if they understand something that has not yet been revealed. The air feels slightly heavier now, not uncomfortable, but full. The breeze moves again, passing softly through the village, brushing against clothes, hair, and wooden surfaces. It carries a faint sense of movement, of change, yet it does not disturb the calm. The glowing window remains unchanged, steady, quiet, watching. The villagers continue their slow movements. One walks along the path. Another pauses near a fence. A third stands still near the bridge. All calm, all silent, and yet all aware. The open door does not move. The light does not fade. The lake reflects everything, but the reflection now feels different. Not in shape, not in form, but in presence, as if the water is no longer simply mirroring the world, but holding it, watching it. The village has begun to awaken, but not into movement, into awareness. And as the morning continues to unfold over Silver Lake, it becomes clear that whatever has begun here has not gone unnoticed. The village remains calm beneath the growing morning light. The first movements of the villagers have begun, yet everything still unfolds slowly, as if guided by an unseen rhythm. No one speaks, no one rushes. Each step, each pause, feels deliberate, quiet, almost careful. Their attention remains the same, drawn toward the house, the open door, the steady, glowing window. Nothing about it has changed, and yet everything around it feels different now. The lake lies perfectly still. Its surface holds the entire village in reflection. Every house, every path, every figure now standing in the light of the morning. The image is clear, undisturbed, almost too perfect to be real. The villagers stand scattered across the paths, some closer to the bridge, some near the square, some further back, half hidden between houses. All of them facing the same direction, watching, not with fear, not with urgency, but with a quiet understanding. The breeze has faded once more. The air feels still again, heavy but calm. The glowing window remains unchanged. Its light does not flicker. It does not dim. It continues to exist, steady and warm, as if it belongs to something beyond the simple morning. Then the lake changes, not above, not in the village, but below. At first, it is subtle. The reflection continues to hold the village perfectly. The shapes remain aligned. The light reflects as expected, until one of the figures moves, but only in the water. A villager standing near the bridge, still and unmoving in the world above, appears to shift slightly in the reflection below. The movement is slow, almost uncertain, like a delayed response. But above, nothing changes. The figure remains completely still. The reflection settles again, perfect, unbroken, as if nothing happened. The villagers do not react. They do not move. Their attention remains fixed on the house. But the lake does not return fully to normal. A second shift, this time near the path. Another reflection, just slightly out of sync. A step that is not taken. A motion that does not exist. And then, stillness again. The water becomes smooth once more. Calm, perfect. But something has changed. The reflection is no longer simply copying the world. It is responding. The glowing window appears again within the lake. But here, its light is stronger, deeper, more alive. It spreads softly across the water, reaching further than it does in the world above, as if the lake is allowing it to grow. The open door reflects as well, but the shadow inside appears darker, deeper, as if the reflection holds more than what can be seen. The villagers remain still, watching, waiting. No one steps forward. No one turns away. The silence holds, unbroken. The air does not move. The trees remain still. Even the smallest sounds have faded, leaving only the quiet presence of the moment. And within that stillness, the lake continues to shift, ever so slightly, almost without being seen. Not enough to disturb the calm, but enough to be felt, as if something beneath the surface has begun to move, slowly, quietly, on its own. And as the village stands in silent awareness, Silver Lake reflects more than just the world above. It reflects something else, something that does not wait for movement, but creates it. The village stands in quiet awareness. No voices fill the air. No sudden movements break the calm. The villagers remain where they are, scattered across the paths, the bridge, and the open spaces between the houses, all facing the same direction. The house, the one near the edge of the village, the one with the open door, and the steady, glowing window. The morning light now fully surrounds it. Soft and warm, it touches the wooden walls, the roof, the small details shaped by time. At first glance, it appears no different from the others. And yet, it feels different. The light inside the window continues to glow, unchanging, steady, present. It does not flicker like fire, nor does it shift with the sun. It exists on its own, separate from the world around it. The open door remains still. The darkness inside it has not changed. It holds its shadow, deep and quiet, as though it leads somewhere that the morning cannot reach. The lake reflects everything, but the reflection still does not fully match. The light inside the house spreads more strongly across the surface of the water. The shadow within the doorway appears deeper, almost endless, as if the lake sees further than the eye. The air grows even quieter. The breeze has completely stopped. Leaves no longer move. The water remains perfectly still. Even the smallest sounds have faded into nothing. Then, something shifts. Not suddenly, not clearly, but slowly. The house changes. At first, it is almost impossible to notice. The wooden frame near the doorway seems to move, just slightly. A small shift in shape, a soft adjustment in position, so subtle it could be imagined. And yet, it continues. The walls appear to settle, not collapsing, not breaking, but breathing, expanding ever so slightly, then returning. A slow rhythm, gentle, almost natural, as if the house itself is alive in the quietest possible way. The movement is small, so small that it does not disturb the calm. But it is there. The villagers do not react. They do not step back. They do not speak. They simply watch, as if they understand, or perhaps as if they have seen this before. The glowing window remains steady, but now, with each slow movement of the house, the light within it seems to deepen, growing warmer, richer, more present. Not brighter, just stronger, The open door shifts slightly, not from wind, not from force, but with the same slow rhythm. A gentle movement inward, then stillness again. The shadow inside responds. It does not move outward. It does not reveal anything, but it feels deeper now, more complete, as if it has shape, even without form. The lake reflects everything, and below the surface, the movement is clearer. The house breathes more deeply in the water. The reflection expands, contracts, with a slightly stronger rhythm than above, as though the lake understands it more clearly. The villagers remain still, watching, waiting. The silence holds, but it is no longer empty. It is filled with something quiet, something present, something that moves without sound. The house continues its slow rhythm, unhurried, unseen by many, but not by all. And as the morning light rests gently over Silver Lake, it becomes clear that this is no ordinary place, because here, even the stillness is alive. The village remains still beneath the soft morning light. Nothing rushes, nothing breaks the calm, and yet, the quiet presence that has settled over Silver Lake feels stronger now, more defined, as if something has moved closer without ever being seen. The house continues its slow, almost unnoticeable rhythm, a gentle expansion, a soft return, like a breath too quiet to be heard, yet impossible to ignore once noticed. The wooden walls hold their shape, but the feeling of movement remains, subtle and constant. The glowing window does not flicker. It does not dim. Its light has grown deeper now, not brighter, but fuller, as though it carries something within it, a warmth that does not belong entirely to the morning. The open door remains slightly wider than before. The darkness inside has not lifted. It does not reflect the light. It does not reveal what lies beyond. It simply exists, still and silent. The villagers do not move. They remain scattered across the village, standing quietly, watching the house with calm attention. There is no fear in their posture, no hesitation, only stillness and awareness. The lake reflects everything. The house, the figures, the sky, all held in perfect balance. But beneath the surface, the reflection feels different, more alive, more present, as if the water understands something the world above has not yet realized. Then, something appears, not in the doorway, not outside, but within the light. First, it is only a suggestion, a faint shift inside the glowing window, a difference in tone, a slight deepening of the golden color, as if something has moved between the light and the glass. The change is small, easy to miss, but it remains. The light does not return to its previous state. Instead, it holds this new shape within it, unclear, undefined, but present. The lake reflects it, and below the surface, the form is slightly clearer, still without edges, still without detail, but more visible, as if the reflection is revealing what the eye above cannot fully see. The house continues its slow rhythm. The movement remains gentle, steady, almost natural. The villagers do not react, but one figure near the bridge tilts their head slightly, a small movement, barely noticeable, as if something has finally been seen. The air remains still. No wind passes. No sound returns. The entire village exists within a quiet pause, suspended between moments. The shape within the light shifts again, not quickly, not suddenly, but slowly, as if turning, facing outward. The window holds it. The light surrounds it, but it does not step forward. It does not leave. It simply remains inside, watching. The open door does not move. The darkness within it remains unchanged, but now it feels connected, as if the shadow and the light belong to the same presence. Two parts of something not yet revealed. The lake remains still. The reflection holds everything, but the shape within the water feels closer, clearer, more certain, and yet still without form. The village does not speak. The villagers do not move. The morning continues, calm and unchanged. But something is now there, not imagined, not hidden, present, and waiting. And as the soft light of Silver Lake continues to rest upon the quiet village, the shape within the window remains, watching from behind the light. The village remains suspended in stillness. Nothing has returned to normal, and yet nothing appears disturbed. The calm still holds, gently stretched across Silver Lake and the quiet paths of the village, as if the world itself is waiting without knowing why. The house continues its slow, steady rhythm, a subtle expansion, then stillness, then again a quiet return. The movement is almost impossible to see now, yet it can be felt in the way the air seems to settle around it. The glowing window remains unchanged. The shape within it does not disappear. It does not step forward, but it is no longer faint. It holds its place within the light, present and still, as though observing the world beyond the glass. The open door stands unmoving. The darkness inside it remains deep, untouched by the warmth that fills the rest of the village. It feels less like shadow now, and more like a space that has chosen to remain hidden. The villagers do not speak. They remain scattered across the village, standing quietly, watching the house. Their stillness is no longer passive. It is intentional, as if they are waiting for something that has not yet happened. The lake reflects everything: the figures, the house, the glowing window, but the reflection feels closer now, as though the surface of the water has become thinner, less like a boundary and more like a connection. Then the light changes, not in brightness, not in color, but in direction. For the first time, the glow within the window begins to extend. Slowly, almost carefully, a thin line of warm light reaches outward from the window, stretching just beyond the edge of the frame. It does not spill or scatter like sunlight. It moves with intention, a single narrow path of light reaching toward the open air. The movement is slow, gentle, almost cautious. The villagers do not react. They remain still, watching. The light continues. It extends further, leaving the window, crossing the wooden wall, and touching the air outside. It does not illuminate the space around it. It does not brighten the ground. It simply exists separate from everything else. The open door does not respond. The shadow inside it remains unchanged, but the light continues. It moves across the space between the window and the path below, descending slowly, as if searching for something unseen. The lake reflects it, but below the surface, the movement is clearer, stronger. The line of light stretches deeper, longer, as though the water allows it to extend further than it can above. One of the villagers near the edge of the path shifts slightly, not stepping back, not stepping forward, just enough to acknowledge what is happening. The light reaches the ground, touches the path softly. No sound follows, no change in the earth, but the presence of it is undeniable. It rests there, still, connected to the window, connected to the house, connected to the shape within. The air feels different now, not heavier, not colder, but aware, as if the space itself has begun to notice. The villagers remain silent. The lake remains still. The reflection holds. But something has crossed a boundary. Something that was once contained is no longer. The light remains stretched between the window and the ground, unbroken, steady, and waiting. And as the quiet morning continues over Silver Lake, it becomes clear that whatever exists within the house has begun to reach outward into the world beyond. The light remains. It stretches quietly from the window of the house down to the path below, unbroken, steady, and unchanged. It does not flicker and it does not fade. It simply exists, connecting the unseen interior of the house with the stillness of the village. No sound follows it. No wind disturbs it. It rests in silence. The villagers continue to stand where they are, scattered across the paths, near the bridge, beside the fences, and between the houses, all facing the same direction. Their presence is calm, unmoving, yet no longer distant. They are watching, not with confusion, not with fear, but with quiet attention, as if this moment has meaning. The lake reflects everything. The thin line of light appears stronger beneath the surface, stretching deeper, brighter, more defined than above. The reflection of the house feels closer, almost as if the water has drawn it inward. Still, nothing breaks the calm, until one figure moves. It begins slowly, so slowly that the movement could almost be mistaken for a shift of balance or a simple adjustment of posture. But it continues. A single villager, standing near the edge of the path, takes a step forward. The motion is careful, measured, unhurried. The foot meets the ground without sound. The step leaves no clear trace, and yet it is real. The other villagers do not follow. They do not turn. They do not react. They remain still, as though this moment belongs only to the one who has begun to move. The figure takes another step, closer to the light, closer to the house, closer to the place where the thin line touches the ground. The air feels stiller now, if such a thing is possible. The space between each movement stretches slightly longer, as if time itself is allowing this moment to unfold more slowly. The glowing window remains steady. The shape within does not move, but it is present, watching. The open door stands unchanged. The darkness inside it does not shift, but it feels deeper, more aware. The figure continues. Another step, then another, each movement calm, intentional, as if guided not by curiosity, but by something quieter, something understood. The light remains where it is, unmoved, waiting. The figure reaches the edge of it, pauses. The distance between them is small now. Only a step remains. The villagers behind remain still. The lake reflects everything, but below the surface, the moment feels closer, clearer, as if the reflection holds more certainty than the world above. The figure lifts a hand, slowly, without hesitation, not reaching quickly, not pulling away, but moving toward the light, as if it already knows what will happen. The space feels suspended, held between two quiet moments. The light does not move. The house does not change. The village remains silent, and yet everything has led to this. The hand moves closer, closer still, until only the smallest distance remains between skin and light, and then it stops, just before touching, hovering, waiting. The moment does not break. It lingers, stretched, quiet, as if the world itself is holding its breath. And as the morning light rests over Silver Lake, one figure stands at the edge of something unknown, not stepping back, not stepping forward, but waiting just before the first touch. The moment lingers. The figure stands at the edge of the light, hand raised, unmoving, as if time itself has slowed to allow this single action to exist on its own. Nothing else in the village changes. The other villagers remain still, their attention quiet and steady. The lake reflects the scene without disturbance. The house continues its soft, almost imperceptible rhythm, and the light remains, waiting. The hand hovers just before it, close enough to feel its presence, though it gives off no heat, no sound, no movement. It simply exists, steady and calm, as though it has always been there. The figure does not hesitate, but it does not rush. The final movement is slow, gentle, almost careful. And then, contact. The hand touches the light. There is no flash, no sudden brightness, no sound. The moment passes without interruption. And yet, something changes. The light does not move, but it responds. Not outwardly, not visibly, but within. The connection is immediate, though quiet. The figure does not pull away. The hand remains where it is, resting within the thin line of light, as if touching something that cannot be fully understood. The air shifts, not in temperature, not in movement, but in presence. The stillness deepens. The space feels fuller, as though something unseen has taken notice. The glowing window remains steady. The shape within it becomes slightly clearer, though still without form. It does not step forward, but it no longer feels distant, feels aware. The open door remains unchanged. The darkness within it does not move, but it feels connected now, as if the light and the shadow are no longer separate. The villagers do not react. They do not step closer. They do not turn away. They simply watch, as if this moment is expected. The lake reflects everything, but below the surface, the change is more visible. Where the hand meets the light above, the reflection shows something deeper, not just contact, but connection. The light appears to extend further within the water, spreading softly, reaching beyond its original form. The figure remains still. The hand does not withdraw, and slowly, almost too slowly to notice, the light begins to move, not away, not outward, but inward, along the hand. It does not burn. It does not glow brighter. It simply travels. A soft golden presence, moving gently from the point of contact toward the wrist, as if following a path that has always existed. The figure does not react. There is no fear, no resistance, only stillness. The movement continues, slow, calm, certain. The house responds. Its subtle rhythm deepens slightly, the gentle expansion becoming just a little more noticeable, as if something within it has begun to align. The shape inside the window remains, watching, present. The village remains silent. The lake remains still. And yet, everything feels different now. Not because something has been broken, but because something has begun. The light settles along the hand. The connection holds, unbroken, quiet. And as the morning continues to rest over Silver Lake, the boundary between what is seen and what is felt begins to fade, without sound, without force, without fear, only presence, only stillness, only the quiet beginning of something that has been waiting. The connection remains. The light rests gently along the hand of the figure, no longer only touching the surface, but now quietly present, as though it has found its place. Nothing about it feels forced. Nothing about it feels sudden. It simply continues, as if it has always known where to go. The figure does not move. The hand remains extended, held within the soft golden line that now reaches from the window to the path. The light no longer feels separate. It no longer feels like something outside. It feels shared. The air remains still. The village holds its silence. The other villagers continue to stand where they are, watching without movement, without reaction, as if this moment belongs to something beyond action. The house continues its slow rhythm, that gentle expansion and return now slightly more noticeable, as though it is responding not only to itself, but to the connection that has been formed. The glowing window remains steady, but the shape within it has changed, not in form, not in movement, but in presence. Feels closer now, not physically, but in a way that cannot be measured, as if the distance between what is inside the house and what stands outside it has quietly diminished. The lake reflects everything, but the reflection now feels deeper, more layered, as though it is holding more than just the surface of the moment. The light within the water spreads gently outward, not as brightness, but as presence, as if something beneath the surface is beginning to understand. The figure remains still, and yet something within them begins to change, not in a way that can be seen clearly, not in posture, not in movement, but in stillness itself. The stillness deepens, the breath slows, the space around the figure feels quieter than before, as if the world has stepped slightly further away. The light continues to rest along the hand, but now it moves further, slowly, without force, travels beyond the wrist, upward, along the arm, not as brightness, not as heat, but as a quiet presence, spreading gently, as if filling something that has always been empty. The figure does not resist. There is no tension, no uncertainty, only calm, only acceptance. The villagers remain unchanged. They do not step closer. They do not turn away. They simply continue to watch, as if they already understand what is unfolding. The open door remains still. The darkness inside does not move, but it feels less distant now, less separate, as if the shadow itself is connected to the light in a way that does not require form. The movement of the light continues, slow, steady, reaching further along the arm, toward the shoulder. The rhythm of the house deepens slightly. The expansion becomes just a little more visible, as though the entire structure is responding to something shared. The shape within the window remains, watching, present, closer. The lake reflects it all, but below the surface, the connection appears stronger, more complete, as if what is happening above has already been understood below. The figure stands within the moment, unmoving, unchanged, and yet no longer the same. The light rests now along the arm. The connection holds, not as something new, but as something remembered. And as the quiet morning continues to unfold over Silver Lake, the change remains, unseen by the eye, but felt deep within. The connection remains unbroken. The light rests gently along the figure's arm, no longer something separate, but something that has become part of the stillness itself. It does not glow brighter, it does not spread quickly. It simply continues, steady and quiet, as though it has always belonged there. The figure does not move, yet the space around them begins to feel different. Not suddenly, not in a way that demands attention, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, the village itself begins to shift. The air changes first. It becomes softer, not lighter, not heavier, but smoother, as though the space between everything has been gently adjusted. The silence deepens, not empty, but full, filled with a quiet presence that rests over the entire village. The breeze does not return. The leaves remain still, and yet they no longer feel frozen. They feel held. The wooden houses stand as they always have. Their shapes remain the same, their textures unchanged. And yet, the way the light touches them begins to alter. The sunlight softens. Edges blur slightly, not enough to distort, but enough to feel less defined. Shadows lose their sharpness, becoming more gentle, more blended, as if the village is no longer bound to exact form. The glowing window remains, its light steady, calm, unchanged, but now it feels less like a source and more like a center, as if everything around it is slowly adjusting, aligning. The open door stands quietly. The darkness within it remains deep, but no longer distant. Feels closer now, not physically, but in presence, as if the space inside the house extends outward, touching the village without ever crossing its boundary. The villagers remain still, but their stillness has changed. It is no longer passive. It is part of the shift. They stand not as observers, but as participants in something quiet, something unfolding without movement. The lake reflects everything, but the reflection no longer feels like a mirror, feels like a continuation. The water holds the village, not as an image, but as something complete, as though the surface is no longer separating above from below. The light within the lake spreads gently, not in brightness, but in depth. The connection between the figure and the house becomes clearer there, more visible, more understood. The figure remains unmoving. The light now rests along the arm and shoulder, no longer traveling, but settled, as though it has reached where it needed to be. And with that stillness, the village continues to shift. The path beneath the figure appears softer, not changing shape, but changing feeling. The ground seems to hold the moment, rather than simply exist beneath it. The bridge remains in place, but its reflection stretches slightly further than before, as though the distance it spans is no longer fixed. The houses stand, but their presence feels deeper, more rooted, as if they are no longer separate structures, but part of a single, quiet whole. Time feels different here, not slower, not faster, but wider. Moments do not pass, they expand. The glowing window remains the center. The open door remains the threshold. The figure remains the connection. And the village is no longer just a place. It is becoming something else. Something that does not need movement. Something that does not need sound. Only presence. Only stillness. Only quiet change. And as the morning light rests gently over Silver Lake, the village does not awaken, transforms, softly, completely, without ever breaking the calm. The village no longer feels separate. The quiet shift that began so gently has now settled into everything. Not as a change that can be pointed to, but as something that is simply there, present in every part of Silver Lake and the land that surrounds it. The connection remains. The light rests along the figure's arm, steady and calm, no longer moving, no longer searching. It has found its place. The figure stands without motion, not frozen, but complete within the moment. The house remains at the edge of the village. The glowing window still holds its warm, steady light. The open door remains unchanged, its shadow deep and silent, yet no longer distant. It feels connected to the space outside it, as if what lies within is no longer fully contained. The villagers stand as they have before, still, watching, but their presence has softened, blending into the environment around them. They no longer feel separate from the paths they stand on or the air that surrounds them. Everything feels unified. The lake reflects it all, but the reflection is no longer only below. It begins slowly, so slowly that it almost cannot be seen. The edge of the water, once clear, once defined by stone and shoreline, begins to soften. The boundary fades, The water does not rise. The land does not sink. And yet, the line between them disappears. The reflection stretches outward, not downward, outward, across the surface of the village itself. The ground near the shore begins to mirror the sky, faintly at first, a soft shimmer across the path, as though a thin layer of water has appeared where there is none. The stones reflect light. The edges blur slightly, holding both solidity and reflection at once. The figure stands within it. The light along the arm remains steady, and now, beneath their feet, the ground reflects the sky just as the lake does. But it is not water. It is something quieter, something deeper. The village does not react. No one steps back. No one moves away. They remain where they are, as if this merging has been expected. The bridge stretches across what was once a clear river. Now, its reflection meets it from both directions, above and below, as if the distance it crosses no longer exists in the same way. The houses remain standing, but their reflections no longer belong only to the lake. They appear gently along the ground, soft and layered, as if the village is being seen from more than one place at once. The glowing window remains the center. Its light now extends not only outward, but across, touching the ground, touching the reflections, holding everything within a quiet balance. The open door remains still. The shadow within it deepens slightly, not darker, but fuller, as if it now connects not only to the inside of the house, but to something beyond the village itself. The air feels endless. The sky reflects below. The ground reflects above, and the difference between them begins to fade. The lake is no longer just water. The village is no longer just land. They exist together now, blended, connected, without boundary. The figure remains still. The light remains steady. The villagers remain calm. Everything continues without movement, without sound, without urgency. And as the morning settles completely over Silver Lake, the world itself feels quieter than before, not because something has ended, but because something has merged. Something that was once separate is now one, and in that stillness, the village and the lake no longer stand apart. They rest together in a quiet, endless reflection. The village and the lake now exist as one. There is no clear boundary left between water and land, between reflection and form. Everything rests within a single quiet presence, as though the world itself has chosen to become still, not just in motion, but in time. Nothing moves forward. Nothing falls behind. The moment holds. The figure remains standing where the light meets the ground. The soft glow still rests along the arm and shoulder, steady and calm, no longer traveling, no longer changing. It has settled into place, as though it has always belonged there. The house remains unchanged. The glowing window continues to hold its warm light. The open door remains still, its shadow deep and silent, yet no longer distant. It feels connected to everything around it, as if it is no longer an entrance, but a point of balance. The villagers remain where they are. They do not move. They do not shift. And yet, they do not feel frozen. They feel present, more present than before, as if each of them exists fully within the single moment, without thought of what comes next, or what came before. The air feels different now, not heavy, not light, but unmoving. The breeze has disappeared completely. The leaves on the trees no longer tremble. The surface that was once the lake remains perfectly still, reflecting the sky and the village without even the smallest ripple. Even the light itself seems to slow. The sun no longer rises. It no longer shifts across the sky. It remains exactly where it is, casting the same soft glow across rooftops, paths, and reflections. Shadows do not move. They do not stretch. They do not change. They remain exactly as they are. The moment does not pass. It stays, held, unbroken. The figure remains within the light. The connection is complete. There is no movement within it now, no sense of something traveling or growing. It simply exists fully. The house no longer breathes. The subtle rhythm has settled into stillness. The glowing window remains. The shape within it is no longer shifting. It holds its place quiet and present, as though it has reached the point it was always meant to reach. The open door remains unchanged. The shadow within it does not deepen, does not lighten. It remains constant. Everything has reached a kind of balance, a still point, a moment that does not lead into another. The lake reflects this perfectly, but the reflection no longer feels like something below. It feels like something within, as if the world is being held inside itself, rather than mirrored. The villagers remain silent. Their awareness has not faded, but it has changed. They no longer watch with expectation. They no longer wait. They simply exist within the moment. The same is true for the figure. The same is true for the house. The same is true for the village. And for the lake. Time has not stopped, but it has expanded. So wide, so still, that movement no longer feels necessary. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing needs to change, because everything already is. And as Silver Lake rests within this quiet, endless moment, the world does not continue forward. It remains exactly here, held within a single breath that never fades. The moment remains. The village, the lake, the sky, all held within a stillness so complete that nothing appears to move, nothing shifts, nothing changes. Time does not pass here. It rests wide and quiet, holding everything exactly as it is. The figure stands where the light meets the ground. The glow remains along the arm, steady and calm. No longer something new, but something fully present. The connection has settled, becoming part of the stillness itself. The house remains unchanged. The glowing window holds its light. The open door remains a quiet threshold. The villagers stand in place, silent, aware, at peace within the unmoving moment. And yet, something moves, not in the wind, not in the light, not in the visible world, but within. It begins with the reflection. Deep within the surface that is no longer only water, a faint shift appears. Not a ripple, not a wave, but a movement that does not disturb anything around it. A slow inward motion, as if something beneath the surface has begun to turn. The reflection of the figure remains still above, but below it changes. The reflected form begins to move slightly, not stepping, not walking, but adjusting, as though it is no longer bound to the stillness above. The movement is gentle, careful, almost curious, and yet completely real. Above, nothing changes. The figure does not move. The villagers do not react. The house remains still, but below, the reflection continues. The reflected arm lifts slightly, a motion that does not exist above. The light within the reflection follows it, flowing differently, more freely, as if the rules that hold the world above do not apply here. The lake holds this movement. It does not break. It does not ripple. It simply allows it. The reflection becomes independent, not separate, but no longer identical. The shape within the window reflects this as well. Above, it remains still, but below, it shifts subtly, as if turning toward something unseen. The open door reflects deeper. The shadow within it appears to extend further in the reflection, as though it leads somewhere beyond what the eye can see. The movement continues, slow, silent, unbound. The reflected figure lowers its arm, not in response, not in reaction, but in choice. The light within the reflection follows, settling differently along its form. Above, nothing changes. The stillness remains perfect, unbroken. The moment does not pass, and yet, something within it has begun to move. The villagers remain unchanged. Their reflections remain still. Only the figure and the house hold this quiet difference, as if the connection between them exists not only in the world above, but more fully within what lies beneath. The air remains still. The light remains steady. The world remains suspended. And yet, within that stillness, a second layer begins to unfold. A layer where movement exists without breaking the calm. A layer where time does not pass, but still allows change. The figure remains. The house remains. The village remains. But the reflection no longer belongs only to what is seen. It belongs to something deeper, something that moves even when nothing else can. And as Silver Lake holds this quiet, impossible moment, it becomes clear that stillness does not mean absence of change, but the presence of something hidden, moving gently within. The stillness remains. Nothing above the surface has changed. The village stands as it has, the houses quiet, the paths empty, the figures unmoving within the wide, endless moment that no longer passes. The light remains along the arm of the figure. The house remains steady. The open door remains a silent threshold. And yet, beneath the surface, something continues. The reflection is no longer still. It moves slowly, carefully, as if guided by a rhythm that does not belong to the world above. The reflected figure has already shifted, its motion independent, unbound, quiet. Now, something else begins. Near the point where the reflected light touches the ground below, the surface deepens. Not darker, not brighter, but deeper, as if the reflection is no longer only an image, but a space. The movement begins there, so gently that it does not disturb the surface. No ripple forms, no wave spreads. The lake remains perfectly still, and yet something rises, not quickly, not suddenly, but slowly, almost carefully, as though it is aware of the stillness above and chooses not to break it. A shape begins to lift from within the reflection. At first, it is only a distortion, a slight shift in form, a soft separation from what should remain flat and mirrored. Then, it becomes clearer. The reflection of the figure begins to rise. Not the whole form, only part. The arm, the one that had moved below, begins to lift upward, not as a reflection, but as something with depth. It does not break the surface. It does not push through. It simply appears to exist slightly above it, as if the boundary has become thin enough to allow it. The light follows. The glow that once belonged only to the window, then to the figure, now extends into this rising form. Soft, calm, unbroken. Above, nothing changes. The figure remains still. The villagers remain in place. The house remains quiet. The moment remains untouched. But here, at the surface, something impossible unfolds. The reflected arm continues to rise. Slowly, without sound, without resistance, it reaches upward toward the same space where the real hand rests above. The distance between them grows smaller. not in the world above, but in the space between reflection and form. The lake remains perfectly smooth. No ripple marks the movement. No distortion spreads. It holds everything, allowing this quiet transition to exist without disturbance. The shape within the window reflects this change. Below, it appears clearer, more defined, as if the reflection understands more than the world above. The open door reflects deeper. The shadow within it stretches further below, as though it is connected to the same place from which the movement rises. The reflected arm reaches higher, closer, almost aligned with the still hand above. And yet, they do not touch. Not yet. The moment holds, stretched, balanced between two layers of the same world. The air remains still. The light remains steady. The village remains silent. But now, there are two presences, one above, one below, and both connected. The boundary is no longer firm. It is no longer certain. It has become something else, something softer, something that allows what was once separate to move toward one another. And as Silver Lake holds this impossible quiet, something that was once only a reflection begins slowly to rise. The moment holds. Nothing above the surface has changed. The village remains still, the figures unmoving, the light steady and calm. Time continues to rest without passing, holding everything in a quiet balance that does not shift. And yet, between what is seen and what is reflected, something now exists. The reflected arm has risen. It does not break the surface. It does not disturb the lake. It simply remains there, slightly above, suspended between two states of being. The real hand remains where it is, still, unmoving, resting within the thin line of light that stretches from the window. And now, they face one another, not as mirror and form, but as two presences, separate, yet connected. The distance between them is small, so small that it almost disappears, but not completely. There is still space, a quiet space, a space that does not belong fully to either world. The lake remains perfectly smooth. No ripple marks what is happening. No movement spreads outward. It holds the moment exactly as it is. The reflected arm continues to rise, just slightly. The movement is slow, careful, as if aware that even the smallest change could alter the balance that now exists. The real hand does not move. It does not reach forward. It does not pull away. It remains waiting. The light remains steady. It connects the window to the hand, and now softly extends toward the reflected form below. Not touching, but close. The villagers remain silent. They do not step forward. They do not turn away. They stand as witnesses not to an event, but to a moment that exists outside of time. The house remains unchanged. The glowing window holds its light. The shape within it remains still, but present, watching. The open door remains a quiet threshold. The shadow feels deeper now, not as darkness, but as something that connects to both layers of the world. The air does not move. The sky does not shift. The light does not change. Everything remains exactly as it is. And yet, everything is different. The space between the two hands grows more defined, not larger, but clearer, as if it is not empty, but filled with something unseen, something that belongs to both. The reflected arm pauses, just below the surface, yet not within it. The real hand remains, just above, yet not fully separate. They are aligned now, perfectly, as if they have always been meant to meet. The light responds, not by growing, not by moving, but by deepening. Its presence becomes stronger, more certain, as though it recognizes what is about to happen. The moment stretches, longer, wider, held between two quiet worlds. No sound, no motion, no change, only presence, only stillness, only the smallest distance between two forms that now feel almost the same. And as Silver Lake holds this fragile balance, the boundary that once separated reflection and reality feels closer than ever to disappearing completely. The moment no longer stretches, settles. The space between the two hands, one above, one rising from the reflection, remains small, quiet, and perfectly still. Nothing else in the village changes. The houses remain untouched, the villagers unmoving, the lake holding everything in silent balance. And yet, something is about to complete. The real hand does not move. The reflected hand does not rush. Both remain exactly as they are, as if guided not by intention, but by something deeper, something that has already decided what will happen. The light remains steady. It stretches from the window through the air, resting along the arm, and now softly reaching toward the space between both hands. It does not flicker. It does not pulse. It waits. The final distance remains, so small that it almost no longer exists. And then, without movement, without force, without sound, the two hands meet. There is no impact, no visible change, no flash of light, no sudden shift. The contact happens as if it has always been there, as if the separation was only an illusion that has now quietly faded. The moment remains calm, unbroken, but something deeper changes. The light responds, not outwardly, not in brightness, but in presence. It flows, not from one to the other, but through both at the same time. The distinction between above and below begins to soften. The reflected hand is no longer only a reflection. The real hand is no longer only real. They exist together, connected, complete. The lake does not ripple. The surface does not break. And yet, the boundary disappears. Not suddenly, not completely, but enough. Enough for the two forms to no longer feel separate. The villagers remain still. They do not react. But something within their stillness deepens, as if they are aware that something long expected has now come to pass. The house remains steady. The glowing window continues to hold its light. But now, the shape within it feels different. Not distant, not watching, but present in a way that extends beyond the window itself. The open door remains unchanged. The shadow no longer feels like darkness. It feels like depth, like a space that connects everything now unfolding. The air remains still. The light remains soft. The moment remains calm. But the world has shifted. The connection holds, unbroken, no longer reaching, no longer waiting, only existing. The figure does not move, and yet something within them is no longer the same. Not changed in form, not changed in appearance, but changed in presence, as if something that once existed outside now exists within. The lake reflects everything, but now there is no difference, no separation, no second layer, only one. The village remains, the house remains, the light remains, but the boundary that once defined them is no longer needed. And as Silver Lake holds this quiet completion, the moment does not end. It becomes something else. Not a beginning, not an ending, but a state, a quiet state where reflection and reality are no longer two things, but one. The connection remains. The hands are no longer separate. What was once above and what was once below now exists together without distance, without division. The moment does not break. It does not move forward. It simply settles into something deeper. The figure stands where the light rests, unchanged in form, yet no longer the same. The light is no longer something that travels or connects. It is simply there, everywhere along the figure's presence. Quiet, steady, complete. The house remains at the edge of the village. The glowing window continues to hold its warm light, but it no longer feels like a source. It feels like part of something larger, something that now exists beyond the walls that once contained it. The open door stands still. Its shadow is no longer a contrast to the light. It is part of it. Depth without darkness, presence without absence. The villagers remain where they are, but they no longer feel separate from one another. Their forms remain, their positions unchanged, and yet the space between them has softened, as if distance itself no longer holds meaning. The lake is no longer below. The village is no longer above. There is no surface, no boundary, no line that separates reflection from reality. Everything exists together within a single quiet field of presence. The ground reflects the sky. The sky reflects the ground, but not as mirror and image, as one continuous space. The mountains stretch upward and downward at the same time. The houses rest, yet extend beyond themselves softly without distortion. The bridge no longer crosses a distance. It simply exists, suspended within the same calm space as everything else. The air feels endless, not empty, but open, without edge, without limit. The light rests everywhere, not shining, not moving, simply present. The figure remains still, but now, the stillness is different. It is not a pause. It is not a moment. It is a state, a quiet state of being that does not need to change. The house no longer breathes. It no longer shifts. It has settled completely. The shape within the window is no longer separate. It no longer watches. It exists as part of everything. The villagers remain calm. Their awareness has softened into something deeper, not watching, not waiting, simply being. The lake, the village, the sky, all of it has become something unified, something without division, without direction, without the need to move from one place to another. Time no longer stretches. It no longer holds. It no longer waits. It dissolves, not disappearing, but becoming unnecessary, because nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to happen next. Everything already is. The light, the house, the figure, the village, all rest within the same quiet presence. No beginning, no end, only stillness, only calm, only a world that no longer has edges. And as Silver Lake exists within this silent completeness, it is no longer a place that can be reached, but a state that simply remains. The world remains without edges. Nothing separates the sky from the ground, the lake from the village, the figure from the space around it. Everything exists within a quiet, endless presence that does not shift, does not change, and does not ask to be understood. And yet, within that stillness, something begins. Not as movement, not as sound, but as form. A gentle sense of structure begins to emerge, not from outside, but from within the stillness itself. The figure remains where it stands. The light is no longer something that rests upon it. It is part of it, woven into its presence, as if it has always been there. The house no longer stands at the edge of the village. There is no edge, and yet, its shape begins to feel clearer, not sharper, not more defined, but more intentional, as if the space around it is slowly recognizing it, allowing it to take form again, but in a different way. The glowing window remains, but it is no longer a window. It is simply a place where light gathers, softly, calmly, without boundary. The open door remains, but it is no longer an entrance. It is a space of depth, a quiet opening that does not lead somewhere else, but exists within everything. The villagers remain present. Their forms do not move, and yet they feel more distinct again, not separate, but gently defined, as if the world is remembering shape without losing unity. The ground begins to feel like ground again, but not solid, not fixed. It holds its form while still reflecting the sky. The sky above remains endless, but now it begins to hold subtle layers, soft shifts in tone, gentle variations in light, not movement, but presence taking shape. The mountains appear again, not rising, not forming, but becoming noticeable, as if they were always there, waiting to be seen. The bridge stretches quietly across the space, not crossing from one side to another, but existing as a line, a gentle connection that holds meaning again. The lake remains, but it is no longer below. It exists within everything, a calm, reflective presence that no longer mirrors but belongs. The figure remains still, and yet it now feels centered, not placed, not positioned, but held, as if everything around it is forming in quiet relation to its presence. The light remains everywhere, but now it gathers more strongly in certain places. The window, the path, the space between the villagers, not as focus, but as gentle points of awareness. The world is not returning to what it was. It is not separating again. It is becoming something new, something that holds both unity and form, both stillness and presence. The silence remains, but it is no longer empty. It has shape, a quiet shape that does not restrict, but gently holds everything in place. The house exists, the villagers exist, the lake exists, the sky exists, but none of them stand apart. They belong to one another. The moment does not move forward, but it deepens, becoming something that does not need to change, because it continues to reveal itself from within. And as Silver Lake rests within this new quiet order, the world does not return to what it was. It becomes something softer, something whole, something that carries both stillness and form at the same time. The new form of the world continues to settle. Nothing returns to what it once was, and yet nothing feels unfamiliar. The village, the lake, the sky, all remain present, gently shaped within a quiet balance that does not shift, does not break, and does not ask to be understood. The stillness remains, but it is no longer empty. It holds everything together. The figure stands where it has always been. The light is no longer something that touches it or moves through it. It is part of its presence, woven into its form in a way that no longer feels separate. There is no beginning to the connection, no moment when it started. It simply exists. The house remains. The structure is clear now, softly defined, no longer shifting, no longer breathing. It stands within the space not as something separate, but as something held. The glowing window gathers light, not as a source, but as a quiet center. The open door remains. Its depth is unchanged, yet it no longer feels like an entrance or an exit. It is simply part of the space, a calm opening that belongs. The villagers remain where they are. Their forms are gently defined now, clearer than before, yet still connected to everything around them. They do not move, but they no longer feel still in the way they once did. They feel complete, each one existing fully within the quiet balance that surrounds them. The ground holds its shape, the sky rests above, and within, the lake exists not below, but throughout. Everything is where it is, and yet also everywhere else. The bridge stretches across the village, not connecting two places, but existing as part of the same continuous space. The mountains remain, their forms calm, steady, no longer distant. They do not rise above, they rest within. The air feels clear, not empty, but gently filled. There is no breeze, no movement, and yet nothing feels still in a frozen way. Everything feels settled. The light remains everywhere, but it no longer spreads. It no longer gathers. It simply exists in perfect balance. The figure remains unchanged, but now it feels at rest, not waiting, not becoming, but complete. The house feels the same. The villagers feel the same. The entire village rests within itself. No separation, no tension, no need for change. Time does not return. It does not begin again. It simply remains unnecessary, because nothing needs to move forward. Nothing needs to unfold. Everything already is exactly as it should be. The lake holds this perfectly, not reflecting, not mirroring, but existing as part of the same calm structure that now defines everything. There is no distortion, no shift, no second layer, only one space, one presence, one quiet world. The silence continues, but now it feels stable, not waiting, not holding, but supporting everything that exists within it. And as Silver Lake rests within this gentle, unchanging calm, the world does not shift again. It remains softly held, perfectly balanced, within a silence that no longer needs to change. The calm remains, nothing shifts, nothing changes, and yet everything feels softer now, as if the world itself has settled into a quieter layer of its own presence. The village rests. The houses stand as they have, gently shaped, held within the same quiet balance. The glowing window continues to gather light, not as a source, but as a place where something gently remains. The open door still holds its depth, but it no longer feels like an opening into something unknown. It feels familiar, as if it has always been there, not leading somewhere, but simply existing as part of the whole. The figure remains still. The light that once moved, once connected, once changed, is now fully part of its presence. There is no boundary between the figure and the glow. It does not stand within the light. It is the light, just as much as it is form. The villagers remain, their shapes soft, calm, complete. They no longer watch. They no longer wait. They simply exist, each one held within the same quiet state, where nothing needs to happen next. The lake surrounds everything, not below, not above, but within. Its surface no longer reflects. It feels like a gentle memory of reflection, something that once existed, but is no longer needed. The sky rests across the entire space. Soft tones blend together without edge or separation. The light does not come from a direction anymore. It is simply present everywhere, evenly, quietly. The mountains remain, their forms soft and distant, yet also near, as if distance itself no longer matters. The bridge stretches across the village, but it no longer connects one place to another. It exists as a quiet line, a gentle reminder of movement within a world that no longer needs to move. The air feels deeper now, not heavier, not lighter, but softer, as if the space itself has become more gentle, more accepting, more still. Everything feels like it belongs, not placed, not arranged, but naturally present. The silence continues, but now it feels different, not like the absence of sound, but like a quiet layer that rests over everything, holding it gently in place. The figure remains, the house remains, the villagers remain, the lake, the sky, the mountains, all remain, but they feel less like objects and more like a shared state, a dream that does not fade, not because it is fragile, but because it is complete. Nothing pulls away from it, nothing breaks it, nothing disturbs it, continues without effort, without change. The glowing window remains the quiet center, but now it feels less like a focus and more like a calm presence within the whole. The open door remains, but it no longer suggests something beyond, because there is no beyond anymore. Everything is already here. The moment does not pass. It does not deepen. It simply continues, gently, endlessly, without needing to become anything else. And as Silver Lake rests within this quiet, dreamlike stillness, the world no longer feels like something to be observed, but something to rest within, something to drift through, something that holds you without ever needing to move. A dream that remains softly, without end. The quiet remains. Nothing changes. Nothing needs to. The village, the lake, the sky, all rest together within the same soft and endless calm, as if the world itself has finally found a place where it can simply exist without effort, without movement, without time. The figure stands where it has always been, but now it no longer feels like a single presence within the world. It feels like part of the stillness itself. The light that once moved, once reached, once connected, is no longer something that can be followed or traced. It is everywhere, soft, even, endless. The house remains. Its shape is gentle, familiar, quietly held within the calm. The glowing window continues to rest in place, but its light no longer stands apart. It blends. It belongs. The open door remains, but its depth is no longer something to look into. It feels like a quiet space that simply exists, without leading, without ending, without asking to be understood. The villagers remain where they are, but they no longer feel like individuals standing in separate places. They feel like part of the same quiet presence, each one calm, each one still, each one held within the same gentle state. The ground feels soft, not changing, not shifting, but supporting everything without effort. The lake surrounds the village, not as water, but as a quiet presence that holds reflection, memory, and stillness all at once. The sky rests everywhere. There is no direction to the light, no movement of the sun, no shifting shadows. Everything remains exactly as it is, and yet it does not feel frozen. It feels complete. The mountains remain, soft in form, quiet in presence. They do not rise above. They do not stand apart. They simply exist within the same calm as everything else. The bridge remains, but it no longer connects. It rests, a quiet shape within a world that no longer needs to move from one place to another. The air feels deeper now, not heavy, not empty, but full of quiet, full of calm, full of presence. The silence continues, but it is no longer something that surrounds the world. It is something the world exists within. The figure remains, the house remains, the villagers remain, the lake, the sky, the mountains, all remain. Nothing fades, nothing shifts, nothing begins, nothing ends. The moment no longer feels like a moment, feels like something endless, something that does not need to change to continue. The glowing window is still there, but it is no longer a center. Everything is a center now. Everything holds the same quiet balance. The open door remains, but there is no longer a sense of inside or outside. Everything exists within the same space. The calm deepens, not in intensity, but in softness, in stillness, in quiet presence. And as Silver Lake rests within this gentle, endless state, the world no longer feels like something that exists outside of you, but something that you can drift into, something that holds you softly, without effort, without thought, without end. A stillness that gently remains. The stillness deepens, not in a way that can be measured and not in a way that changes what is seen, but in a way that softens everything even further, as if the world itself has gently moved beyond the need to be noticed. Silver Lake remains. The village remains. The sky, the mountains, the quiet forms of the houses and the paths, all remain exactly where they are, and yet they feel further away, not distant, not fading, but quieter, as if they have stepped gently beyond the reach of thought. The figure remains present, but no longer as something separate. It does not stand within the world. It belongs to it completely. There is no movement, no intention, no awareness that needs to follow anything, only presence. The light remains, but it is no longer something that can be seen directly. It does not glow. It does not gather. It simply exists softly everywhere at once. The house remains, its form still recognizable, yet less defined. Not blurred, not lost, but softened, as if its edges no longer need to hold it in place. The glowing window remains, but its light no longer stands apart. It feels like a memory of light, something that once shone and now simply rests. The open door remains, but it no longer suggests depth. There is no inside, no outside, only a quiet, continuous space. The villagers remain, but they no longer feel like figures. They feel like part of the calm itself, quiet shapes within something larger, something that does not need to be seen clearly to be understood. The ground remains, but it does not feel solid. It feels gentle, as if it supports everything without effort, without weight, without resistance. The lake surrounds everything, but it is no longer water. It is a presence, a quiet layer that holds reflection, memory, and stillness all at once, without separating them. The sky remains, but it no longer stretches above. It exists everywhere. Soft tones, gentle light, no direction, no movement. The mountains remain, but they feel lighter, not rising, not standing, simply resting within the same calm as everything else. The bridge remains, but it no longer connects. It exists quietly without purpose, without need. The air feels deeper, not full, not empty, but beyond both, beyond the need to feel anything at all. The silence continues, but it is no longer something that surrounds. It is something that everything rests within. There is no sound, no thought, no movement, and slowly, even the idea of stillness begins to fade, not disappearing, but becoming unnecessary, because nothing needs to be still. When nothing needs to move, the figure remains, the house remains, the village remains, and yet none of it asks to be followed or understood or even noticed. It simply is, soft, quiet, endless. And as Silver Lake rests within this deeper, quieter place, the world becomes something else, something beyond form, something beyond thought, something that holds you gently without asking you to hold onto it in return. Quiet place, beneath everything, beneath even the need to dream, where nothing remains except calm. The quiet deepens even further, so gently, so slowly, that it cannot be noticed as a change. It does not arrive. It does not grow. It simply becomes less. The village remains, but it no longer feels like a place. The houses are still there, yet their shapes feel lighter now, as if they no longer need to hold themselves together. Their edges soften into the space around them, not disappearing, but no longer separate. The glowing window remains, but it no longer shines. It no longer gathers light. It feels like a memory, something that once existed, now resting quietly without needing to be seen. The open door remains, but there is no depth within it, no shadow, no sense of inside or outside, only a quiet continuation of the same endless space. The figure remains, but not as a form, not as a presence that stands or waits. It exists, but without position, without boundary, without the need to be recognized. The villagers remain, but they are no longer figures. They are part of the same softness, the same calm, the same quiet that holds everything without separating anything. The ground remains, but it does not feel beneath. The sky remains, but it does not feel above. The lake remains, but it does not feel around. Everything has moved beyond direction, beyond placement, beyond the need to exist in relation to anything else. There is no center, no edge, no distance, only presence, soft, endless. The mountains remain, but they are no longer shapes. They are suggestions, quiet forms that no longer need to define themselves. The bridge remains, but it has no length, no connection. It simply is, without purpose, without meaning. The air remains, but it does not feel like something that can be breathed. It feels like the absence of everything that once needed to be felt. The light remains, but it is no longer light. It does not glow. It does not illuminate. It simply exists as a quiet awareness, spread evenly without beginning, without end. The silence remains, and yet, even the silence begins to fade, not disappearing, but becoming unnecessary, because there is nothing left to disturb, nothing left to quiet, nothing left to hold. The moment no longer exists. There is no time, no before, no after, no sense of now, only something that remains without needing to be described. The village, the house, the lake, the sky, all of it is still there, and yet none of it asks to be seen. None of it asks to be followed. None of it asks to be remembered. It simply rests beyond form, beyond feeling, beyond thought. A place where even stillness no longer needs to exist, because nothing remains that could ever move. And as Silver Lake fades into this quiet, endless softness, there is nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to follow, nothing left to become, only a gentle, endless calm, where everything and nothing exist together without difference. The quiet remains, endless, unbroken. Nothing rushes back. Nothing forces its way into being. And yet, within the deep, soft calm, something begins to return. Not as movement, not as sound, but as the faintest sense of form. First, it is barely there, a suggestion, a softness within the softness. The village does not reappear all at once. It does not rebuild. It simply becomes slightly more noticeable. The shapes of the houses begin to rest within the calm again, not defined, not sharp, but gently present, as if they were always there, simply waiting to be felt again. The lake remains, but now it carries a quiet sense of space once more, not as water, not as reflection, but as a calm presence that holds everything gently without separating anything. The sky returns, not above, not around, but within. Soft tones begin to settle again. Pale light, quiet depth without direction. The figure remains, not as a body, not as a form that stands, but as a quiet center of awareness, something that exists without needing to be seen. The light remains, but now it gathers just slightly, not in brightness, not in intensity, but in presence. It begins to feel closer, warmer. The house begins to take shape again, not fully, not clearly, but enough to be recognized. Its outline rests softly within the space, as though it has gently returned without ever leaving. The window remains, but it no longer glows. It simply exists, holding a quiet stillness within it. The open door remains, but it no longer feels like an opening. It feels like a calm pause within the form, a place where nothing begins and nothing ends. The villagers begin to return, not as figures, but as quiet forms, softly placed within the space, present without weight, without movement. The ground begins to feel like ground again, but it remains soft, endless, without edge. The mountains return, not rising, not standing, but resting gently, as if they have always been part of the same quiet breath. The bridge returns, but it does not connect. It exists quietly, without purpose, without need. The air returns, but it does not move. It does not carry. It simply exists, calm, endless, still. The silence remains, but now it feels softer, not empty, not deep, but gentle, as if it holds everything without effort. Nothing pushes forward. Nothing changes suddenly. Everything returns slowly, naturally, without breaking the calm. The world does not rebuild. It remembers. The village, the house, the lake, the sky, all return as quiet suggestions, softly resting within the same endless presence. The moment does not begin again. It simply becomes slightly more visible, slightly more present. And as Silver Lake rests within this gentle return, the world does not wake. It remains within the dream, but now with shape, with softness, with quiet form that holds without ever needing to change.